Okay, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Random Hamilton, and I will be your artist resident today. Let's get some music kicked on here. There we go. Welcome to another Thursday morning stream. This is our third Thursday morning stream. I'm very excited. Both weeks we've crushed out a new project. Today's a little different. Today we are going to be starting a new project. I had a bit of a midweek mix-up. I was going to try to delve into kind of a new overall, new approach to a big project I'd like to work on long term. And I worked on it on Tuesday, and it just wasn't coming together. It didn't feel. I wasn't feeling like I was making good progress in the stream. The idea is a little undercooked. That'll happen. If you're unfamiliar to setting up and kind of prepping projects, that's a thing, and actually I think it's probably a good experience for us all to be able to share that on the stream. Your projects, try as you might, sometimes they're just not a place to be shared properly. I'm going to turn this light on real quick. Give me just 1 second. All right. Sorry about that. Thank you for waiting. Okay. So at the end of the day, a project is only as good as the planning that goes behind it, right? It's one thing if we're just picking a picture to draw. In fact, the last 2 weeks, I really just kind of flew by the seat of my pants and started working on pieces that were kind of speaking to me, speaking my language. And that's a very common thing as well. Sometimes you just need to kind of pick a lane, stick into it, and just draw, and that's easy. That's very natural to most of us. But sometimes the drawings or the art needs to be rooted in something else. And in this case, one of my long-term projects I'm really excited about, my big goals going forward, is to start developing this project that me and my wife have been talking about for years and years and years. And one of the big goals we have is to create this whole ecosystem of stories around our son Otto. And by developing an ecosystem of stories around Otto, we can not only kind of document his growth and growing up, but our experiences, and they're fun little looks into our world that we think could be really exciting and great storytelling opportunities, just as a family. Because at the end of the day, that's kind of why I'm doing all this. I love being a stay-at-home dad. I love being a kind of a home provider. And the streaming and focusing on the art allows me to be here and provide that balance for our family, and also get as much time with my son as possible as he's going through his toddler years. Because I got to tell you, man, it's like watching literally like watching like a little flower grow in front of you, but like sped up. They're ridiculous. They're ridiculous, and it's just crazy. So I started working on it on Tuesday. And it just, I don't know, I didn't walk away from that stream feeling like the progress that was made on the stream was very beneficial to the actual growth of what I want to create, if I'm being perfectly honest. And so I had a conversation with Kelly, my wife, and we decided, let's just go ahead and let's sideline that for now. I need to put more time into it off stream. I've got to get a few more things kind of laid down. I got to get some character designs and some silhouettes kind of figured out. I got to figure out how many creatures we're going to be making for the different stories. If these pieces of artwork are going to be what are going to become vinyl toys, or if we're going to go ahead and just make a whole different set. There's just lots of unanswered questions. So today we're going to go ahead and we are going to delve into a project from the stream. I had viewers last week when we were talking about what we'd like to see and ideas, and it kind of aligned with this other project idea I'd really been thinking about for a long time. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put up on the screen our goals, and let's just see. I'm going to go ahead and make a little text box here so that it can just float on the screen. You don't have to see something. So let's go ahead and new. And we're going to go ahead and add text. There we go. All right. We're going to add a source, add a new source instead. The name of the source is going to be concepts. Okay. We'll use the Google fonts. That's fine, that's fine, that's fine. Okay, we're going to go ahead and call this. So the goals are, it has to be a dragon. It's made from flowers. Okay. We are in a steampunk world. Hey, welcome to the stream. Thanks for joining me. Today we are exploring a new concept that was kind of devised on the stream from some of my viewers earlier in the week. We are going to be doing a brand new piece of a dragon made out of flowers, incorporating a steampunk character and her robot having a tea party, having a conversation with the dragon. Yes, it sounds complicated, but we can simplify it, right? We just got to kind of think through it and talk it out, and we'll get it. So, I'm also going to go ahead and lean into a different style today. You guys have only seen me do really heavy pen work, and I would like to show a little more diversity. And just change it up. So today, instead of just going pen work, we're actually going to do predominantly pencil work and only use pen at the end to really establish some dark areas. Alright, so we're doing a dragon made out of flowers. So dragon made out of flowers. Steampunk world with steampunk characters, girl and robots, and they are in a garden. Flowers need to be prominent, positive piece. All right, so here are our new constraints. This is what we're working against here. And I think it's important to allow yourself these kind of constraints at times, because this is how you challenge what you're used to doing. You know, this is how you kind of change it up and make it interesting. Let's see if I can adjust my text settings real quick. We're going to go for the bold. Make sure it really stands out. That's good. And then let's change from Arial to something a little less this. That's not going to work for me. Alright. For those who are just joining me, hang tight just one moment, please. We're just getting this set up. I want you to be able to see the prompts on the screen, so this is just going to take a moment for me to... I wonder if they got Roboto. I love Roboto. Roboto is one of my favorite fonts. It's just kind of no-nonsense. It's clean, it's not boring, and it's one of the ones out there. Yes! That's not the right Roboto. Roboto condensed. Let's go with bold. Okay, that works. Okay, I like Roboto. Okay, so our prompt, there we go. That's a little better. I'll keep our prompt right above my image. Okay, we are doing a dragon made out of flowers. Steampunk characters, a girl and a robot. They are inside of a garden. The flower needs to be a prominent part of the artwork, but we want to go and make this more of a positive piece. I wouldn't say that I make negative artwork, but I think that my wife made a good point that a lot of my artwork tends to be reflective of my life story or my experiences, and I have had kind of an interesting and not always very positive story. That's not to say that life is hard, life is bad, anything like that, but, you know, as an artist, it's our job to interpret the world through our lens. When you tell a story, right, when you're talking to somebody, you're telling them a story, and you're kind of elaborating, you're getting them excited, and you're really into it, often that story, the cadence of it and the way you tell it is through your way of communicating your experiences. You'll often throw in little tidbits or little things, comments that are reflective of you and your personality, and that's great. And that's why when somebody's an amazing storyteller, we all have met that person who can tell the best stories, and everybody laughs, and everybody just kind of zones in on them when they're telling you stories. Those individuals are just natural creative storytellers. They know how to wind a tale and involve you and bring you into it. There's a call and response system there. There's just tons of little intricacies of their personality, but really it is about the way that they communicate that it draws people in. We do the same thing through our art, right? So when I'm talking about, developing a piece of artwork or kind of sketching something out, the best thing, all I'm doing is, we're doing a dragon made of flowers, right? I've never even seen a dragon made of flowers. I've seen dragons who have been made of like fire and ice and earth and water and scales, but never flowers, which is interesting, right? That's kind of cool. Why couldn't there be a dragon made of flowers? There's certainly a reason to say that there could be a dragon that's like an earth dragon, and then you could say, well, flowers could grow out of the dragons. Like, the dragon doesn't have to literally be made of flowers. It doesn't have to be like a network of roots on the inside, or maybe it is. Maybe it's made of roots. So there's lots of potential there. And we want to explore those concepts in ways that are just, outside of our norm, right? That's what we're going for. We're trying to explore beyond how we normally approach stuff. So we're going to start today, and we got a fresh piece of paper. I am fighting the urge to eat a granola bar. I've been fasting so I don't eat between the hours of like noon and 10 p.m. Or I don't eat outside of the hours of noon to 10 p.m. And some mornings it's really tough. And this morning I'm just struggling. So I might get weak and have that granola bar sitting next to me. I'm just trying to fight it. I've got an hour. I can deal with that for an hour. I got coffee. But I've lost 20 pounds from just doing this. That's all I've been doing. I've just restricted my eating between those hours and nothing else. And I haven't changed my diet anyway. In fact, I would say I've probably eaten more like sweets and stuff, which I previously tried to avoid, but it's actually been working really well for me. So I'm trying to maintain that. It's been one of my big goals as being a stay-at-home dad to try to find ways to be healthier for my family and my son so that I can have a lot longer to be with them. Because I have a bad history of men's health in our family and just things like that. So let me get this piece of paper. We'll get started on this piece of work. Welcome to the stream. For those who have never been here before and you're new to my stream, my name is Random Hamilton. I am a concept artist, designer, stay-at-home dad, and streamer. You are going to be joining us on starting a brand new piece. We are starting off a piece with the prompt located here. The prompt located here is exactly what we will be drawing today. So we are drawing a dragon made out of flowers with a steampunk girl and her robot having a tea in a garden while talking to the dragon. The dragon motif is going to be very prominent in this piece. I just have another thing I'm going to do where I'm going to draw the piece, and then I'm going to draw a frame, and then we're going to mix those two in Photoshop, so this will be effectively like a drawn framed piece. It should be a lot of fun to explore, and we're just going to kind of start off right now. Okay. Let's just make sure that we don't got too much of a tilt. I feel like the camera's a little tilted right now. Maybe we need to go a little bit higher. Again, I'm a fairly new streamer, so there is always little bugs I'm trying to work out. I'm trying to find what the best experience for you is, and unfortunately, what that requires is me just to go ahead and watch the stream after the fact. I apologize if this is making you a little seasick. I'll be quick about this. Okay, that should do. All right, let's get cracking. All right. Oh, 1 second, please. My wife just asked me a question. I just want to make sure I answer her so I don't get in trouble. Okay. So I kind of did a loose sketch of this a few days ago. And I want to see if I still have that, because it'd be great to share that with you to kind of see where my mind's at, right? Again, when it comes to this kind of stuff, I really, really try to make sure to not go too out there and put too much in the world. You just never know how these ideas are going to come to life, and if you pre-plan it too much, you can really set yourself up for just having to then go and accommodate a lot of ideas that maybe you've moved past, right? Think about it when you're planning a piece kind of like that. It's not so much that you can't change your mind. There's nothing wrong with that. But the where you run into some problems is if you get too comfortable or too set behind an idea before you really had a chance to draw it out and really put some life into it. And what can occur from that is that before you know it, you are kind of stuck in these ideas that you're not sure you want to continue with, right? And then you feel obligated because you've already kind of put it on the table that this is what you're doing. So being a little loose is just never a bad thing. And it never hurts to try and give yourself new opportunities to improve on, approve or deny, improve on what you're making. So this was an initial sketch that I made. And I don't know if it's reading very clearly because of the green pencil, but effectively what we have here is we have our flower dragon looking over the top, kind of heads going out of the screen, very long neck, very long body. As it comes around, we see it wrapping around as the background and the midground. Then we have our characters sitting here, talking to the dragon, having their tea. And then up here, we have some very prominent flowers in the foreground, almost like rose bushes. And then off in the background, we'll see maybe some mountains and some hills. And that way, it's like a very scenic piece, so that we can kind of keep all the attention kind of going towards the center. Now, there's a couple things that the sketch that we have here won't translate to the larger picture. And this is all part of the planning process when it comes to pulling together this kind of idea. Understand that even if you sketch something to this format, it's not always going to work in the format we're working with. And one of the things I'm really kind of set on for this piece is I would like to keep this more of a tall piece, which is strange, right? When you see this, you're like, where does the height come in? Well, the height comes in, I believe, here. Because I want this to go inside of a frame, I want the frame to be a little more narrow and a little more tall, right? I don't necessarily need to mark up my paper, because in Photoshop, I can layer those two pieces together and not have to worry about trying to cut my drawing artificially. Let's let the drawing be natural, and then we'll combine those two different images in the actual Photoshop document. So if I know this is kind of my baseline, let's talk about what's working here. So where's our center of focus? Our center of focus is absolutely this moment right here. So this is pivotal, and we're going to have the dragon's eyes. Let's get a different colored pencil here, or pen. Got a red pen around here somewhere. There we go. I want the dragon's eyes to be fixed right on these characters. And the important thing about that is that if the dragon is looking down at them, and the highest point of contrast is these characters having tea in the center of this piece, it's going to be a very easy thing to make this the primary focus. But where do we want to go from here, right? Okay, yeah, you start looking here. Where do I want the eye to go? Okay, well, I want to start here. Then I want your eye to go to the dragon. Then I want to do something a little interesting. And normally we try for this triangle motif. And the triangle is you start here, you go here, you come here, you come back. But that doesn't really take us across the piece of artwork, right? And I really do think that this is number one. This is number two. So where do I want number three to be? What is the third place on our artwork that needs to be important? And I think I want to do something up here. So I wanted you to go boom, 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 boom. Okay, so we have 1, 2, number 3, number 4. There, to there. And then that's when you start exploring the rest of the artwork. Okay? Now, this may seem excessive, but you have to, again, we go back to what we were talking about earlier. We're storytellers, right? It's great and all to be able to make a cool looking picture, and I think that's a really that's why we create, right? We want to make cool stuff. But once you know you can start drawing really cool stuff, then you have to like look beyond your drawing. Then you have to look at what you're trying to convey through your drawing. Oh my god, I need this granola bar. I apologize, I'm going to eat this granola bar here while we talk. There's just one of you on the stream with me, so I'm going to be super informal. By the way, if you're on the stream and you have the ability, feel free to say hi in the chat. I would love to be able to at least address you. And I don't know who's on the stream because I can't see whose name it is. Okay. Apologize for the eating. It'll be quick. Okay. So, we now know what our central focus is. We also know who our main characters are. We know they're having tea. We know that we need the flower dragon. We know we need a lot of flowers in the scene. We very clearly established a couple things here. We have a foreground, and everything happening right here. More on that to make this interesting. This is the foreground. We have our middle ground. Our middle ground is these characters sitting here having tea. What separates the middle ground and the foreground is the form of the flower dragon. So a bunch of flowers, flowers, flowers. Maybe some bushes. Maybe they're having tea on like a stump. I like the idea of the dragon not having a tea set, but maybe the characters are drinking out of like flower tulips, flower flutes. Think very Alice in Wonderland. Seems like a fun opportunity to do something cool like that. Got our characters. We got our dragon head. Now the dragon head is still part of the middle ground, right? Because the middle ground is this whole interaction piece. And then, going off into the background, we could do something like we could have the last part of the dragon's tail, or we could have like hills made of like flowers. I mean, there's so much we can do, right? We can put flying creatures in the air. We can do so much stuff to evolve this world, right? So that's what I would say. The background is now an opportunity for us to create a story, a evolution story of this world. So let's just go ahead and mark the background so you can kind of start thinking about opportunities to exist behind our main characters, behind our main story. Everywhere with the lines is a storytelling opportunity for us to essentially create the world around this system. I know it seems like a lot right now, but I assure you it will start coming together. But I think even looking at the sketch, like I'm looking at the screen right now, looking at the sketch, I think the idea is coming through real nicely. Foreground. Middle ground. Background. Alright, we got something here. This is good. This is really good. Alright. So now, let's talk about what's going to happen. Let's just start. Let's anchor a piece in middle ground. Let's start the middle ground. Okay. I like to use a lead dispenser for a lot of my loose drawing. These are literally two of my favorite tools in the entire world. All they are is they're called lead holders, and they're a dispenser for an extremely long lead. It's a very thick gauge. This is not a precision tool. This is intended to give you a long-lasting, consistent amount of lead that you can use. I prefer to use this non-photogenic green because it's easy to draw with. Not only is it easy to draw over, it doesn't really show up on stream or on print as prominently. And I've recently started embracing showing my work and letting my strokes and my sketching remain on the screen. Sorry, my mother-in-law is trying to set up an iPad for my son, and they need my access to my Amazon account, and she keeps saying she's sending it, and it is not coming through. Sorry about this. Okay. What I did there was I just sharpened my lead. The cool thing about lead dispensers is this looks like a cap, but this is actually your sharpener. So with the lead dispenser, you always have a sharpener on your pencil. So as soon as you need to sharpen it, you just put the cap on, and you just twist the top. That sharpens it up, and then you're good to go. This guy's a bit of a different beast. Let me turn it. This guy's a little bit of a different beast. I got this guy last weekend. This is the thickest piece of lead I've ever seen in my entire life. Look at this thing. It's thicker than a number 2 pencil. So we just pop it in. Now I had to get its own sharpener that was like $8, but how is she going to sharpen this, right? You're pretty much stuck with having to get the exact sharpener. But it's kind of cool. It's like a doorknob, you know. Just allows me to kind of get a little bit of cleanliness, a little bit of tightness. Now, what you're going to see me do today is predominantly I'm going to go ahead and focus my attention around just laying everything out. So today, the morning stream, or at least streaming until I can't stream anymore, my son and my wife had the day off, so my son and my wife went out to her mom's. So I've got the house free and clear. So we're going to just stream until we need a break. If that's cool with you. All right. I've sharpened my pencils. This is something I usually do off stream, but you know what? Let's just do it here. What's the point? You know, I was thinking about the other day. I've been trying to think about like what the proper amount of prep is, how I should go about making sure that I don't interrupt the flow of the channel by this kind of stuff. And I was talking to my wife about it, and she was like, well, isn't sharpening your pencils and doing prep and kind of talking about your ideas part of the process of being an artist? And I was like, well, yeah, but it's just not very engaging. And she said, well, yeah, but not all, you know, doing art isn't always the most engaging thing. So sometimes you just need to, Hey, Ezra Doll. All right. So she made a good point. She was like, it's more authentic to what you're doing and what you want to achieve because you let people see the whole picture of being an artist. And I can't argue with that. It's not as enticing, and I hope I'm not too boring, but it is pretty important to go through these rituals, and these processes, and these steps before you actually start drawing. It's as vital as a cup of coffee. You try to have me drawing without coffee in my system, or if I'm kind of sleepy, forget about it. It's never going to happen. All right. Let's get cracking. So we know where our main characters are at, and let's go ahead and just put them in. Now, again, we're working with the green pencil, so it's not too big of a deal. We can always go over it. You're never going to lose it. We know the center of the piece is going to be here. That's fair. Doesn't need to be exact. We just need to kind of pick there. I am going to establish some loose boundaries so that I kind of have some artificial stopping points because I don't want to go to the edge of the paper because this piece is going to be residing inside of a frame. Now, this is not some exact measurement I'm doing. I'm just giving myself some established boundaries just so I know that even if a part of the drawing goes past this line serves as like, don't develop any ideas past this point, right? Does that make sense? So like, yeah, I can have something like fall off into this space, but don't start any ideas out here that need to then be resolved because I'm just going to be setting myself up. I'm going to be working on drawing something that I'll end up having sit behind the frame, and that's not a very smart idea. So we already have to start thinking about this thing at a frame. Not necessarily exactly. Who knows what kind of frame it's going to be. I've kind of gone back and forth. Oh, there we go. Yes, I will do a sign attempt. Approve. Sorry guys, I'm dealing with my mother-in-law still. Let me correct that. I am attempting to help my mother-in-law out in making sure we can get my son's... Yes, I'm aware someone's attempting. Alright. Apologies about this. Thank you for hanging in there with me. This is just one of those things. Okay. Alright, sorry about that, y'all. Alright, so let's go ahead and we've established our loose frame. We've established our center focus. We're going to go ahead and just give a little bit of a top here. Okay. All right. So we've got our loose boundaries established. We've got our center point established. I'm not going to worry about trying to do a bunch of character design in this. I have pulled a bunch of reference. Unfortunately, my account for QuickRef is only on my iPad. So my reference board kind of has to reside on my iPad, and I can't share it on the screen, which is really frustrating, if I'm being perfectly honest. Because I would really enjoy you guys to be able to see the reference I'm looking at. But sometimes it just doesn't work like that, and that's okay. We're going to go ahead and I'm going to pull reference off the screen. It'll be a chance for me to drag things onto the other screen for you to look at, so you get a sense for what my mind's thinking. So that's all I'm going to do. Let me get my reference up here. I definitely am going to go more children's book, if that makes sense, on this approach. I would like it to be a little lighter. There will obviously be moments of detail, but the goal isn't to be overly detailed, if that makes sense. The goal is to essentially establish a visual identity that's kind of unique to this piece. So the kid's going to be a lot simpler. In fact, let's start there. Let's start at our tea party. What do I want the tea party? What are they having? So we're in the middle of we're being surrounded by a dragon, and the dragon is curling around us. So I almost want to have the tea party be natural to the environment we're in. So maybe we have like a stump rising from the ground. So let's start there. Let's start with our tea party happening on the top of a stump. And I'm just going to go ahead and lay the stump in. We'll worry about how they all interact bits later. We're just getting a stump in here. And this is just to really anchor our piece. I'm going to put some roots. One of the other things we talked about earlier is maybe kind of doing an Alice in Wonderland thing where the world kind of is coming to life. Or I think Belle in Beauty and the Beast, where the house comes to life to kind of serve them. What if we took the same kind of concept and we made it to where like the flowers were serving them? So you could have like a sentient flower that's like letting them pour liquid into the head. I can kind of picture that. You know, I assume a dragon, especially a flower dragon, would probably be kind of like the master of her environment, or his environment. And so the local fauna and the little magical creatures would probably want to be helpful and provide. So we'll go ahead and we can make like a teapot flower. They can all have big smiles on their faces. So we'll make them all sentient. Maybe this teacup is climbing up. You know, and this is really, you know, when we're talking about creating things and creating art and creating settings and creating scenes, it's very hard to pre-draw the image in your head. Can you see that, by the way? I know it's kind of light. Do I need to lower the darkness? Are you able to see my sketch? I really hope you are. I'm going to see if I can lower the light in here a little bit. See if that helps. You have the other problem is I have my screen over there. Alright, I'm going to assume you can see this. I can't see if you're typing a response, so I apologize. I hope you can see the green. If you're not, please hang in there. I'm going to switch to pencil really soon, okay? I just want to be cognizant of the fact that you can only see so much on your screen right now, and it would really suck if you just couldn't see what I was drawing. Okay, so let's keep pushing on this. So we've got our stump here. I'll go ahead and frame the stump in a little bit more so we can really commit that guy. I feel like the stump is in a really good spot. You'll notice I'm not trying to do anything crazy. I'm just getting my shape in and some very, very loose texture and details. Okay, I've got like a little hill here with some grass. That'll be a lot of fun. I love the idea of I love little grassy knolls with a hill kind of rising up. Because if you look at a tree, look at most trees, when trees grow out of a plot of land, often what it'll do is it'll raise the grass around the tree. As the tree gets older and it gets taller and its roots get bigger, the roots dig underneath the dirt, which inevitably pushes the dirt up as the roots grow. So that serves a couple really cool functions, right? Number one, it lets us kind of raise this whole pedestal and really create a very good sense of focus around this, because everything's rising up to the center. We have our initial little teapot flowers. It'll be splashing some tea. Bloop. It's going to have like a little elephant horn. Maybe it'll have little feet. We have the other teacup coming up to be helpful, so to let them drink out of it. We have this teacup pouring over. It's like pouring tea out. Maybe the girl will be sitting right here. Let's see. How do I want her to be responding to a dragon that's over the top of her? What would she be doing? Would she be looking up? How would she be sitting? Would she be offering a cup of tea to the dragon? Because she's kind of a steampunk character. But what is the way that she's responding to the fact that there's this giant dragon sitting over the top of her? Let me think about my reference here. Okay, maybe that's what's going to happen. Maybe she's going to be standing, she'll be kneeling. So we'll have her on her knees. I think that's perfect. So think about why she'd be on her knees. She has this massive flower dragon over the top of her looking down. Now, she's not being threatened, but when things are kind of majestic, have you ever seen anything majestic? And it sounds silly to say it, but when something is truly magical, have you ever seen a giraffe in person and had a giraffe come up really close to your face? You feel humbled. Even though that you're in a zoo, you're like at the height of the eye level of the giraffe. When you look over the edge, you realize that giraffe would just step on you. Like, they're big, they're massive, and they're powerful. As a creature, as a living, breathing creature, nature has informed us that we need to respect things that are bigger than us. because if we don't, in the wild, we'll get eaten. And yes, in an environment of a zoo, there's the veil of safety. But that veil of safety is only because we've created such barriers and control that we've thwarted the natural order in which scale equals protection. So what's cool about that is nature still allows us to feel those haunting bits of like, oh, you know, it's a cool thing. And so we've got our character on her knees. This is going to be a much more cartoony execution, by the way, guys. There will obviously be detail work, but the majority of my efforts are going to be something that's more positive and just telling a fun story. So we've got our main body shape. I'm going to go ahead and give her her upper torso. She's a young lady. There's no reason to be accentuating the female form. You know, this is much more a child. So a young female child that is in this scenario. We have our little nose coming out. Whenever you're working in silhouette, and if you have trouble developing your head, think about this curve right here. So if this is the head, and this is the nose and the eyes, they have this slope. And that's because your eyeballs are actually back here in your eye socket, right? So your nose sticks out. And then your chin comes off that. And we're going to have maybe some arms reaching. And she'll be holding up one of these flutes of tea for the dragon. Oh, that's fun. And then her robot friend will be over here somewhere. And do we want to make the robot bigger or smaller than her? What if we make the robot a little bit bigger than her so it's slightly a protector, like it's looking out for her, but then we'll have another friend that's kind of small, and that little friend can also be present. So let's go ahead and go with a bigger robot friend. I did a loose sketch of a robot, and I don't think it quite applies here anymore. I think I want to do something that's almost like a very beep, boop, beep, like traditional looking junky robot, and maybe she actually made this character. Or this is one that she's kind of helped build out of junk. So he'll be a few different bits of metal. He'll look a little ramshackle. And we'll put him on the backside of the hill so that we don't have to worry about trying to totally establish his full scale, right? Maybe he's got like some little, these guys. And then maybe this side, instead of that is like a little like satellite dish or something. You know, because we are steampunk, right? So we do have to think about this in the context of like this steampunk world, you know, and not so much like in our current world where the technology is very digital and was based out of the coal age. In a steampunk world, pressure and steam became the norm. So he's got like a steam gauge on his chest. We're going to kind of just segment up into different robotic parts. Almost like he's like coming over the ledge, like looking around, and he's a little more like, crap, what's going on here? His scale's a little funny to me, but I also don't want to make him too tall, right? Because if he's too tall, then it won't really serve the piece. So how about we go ahead and we put him... Let's change him. Let's make him a fat little robot. I can think of a million ways to draw this character to make him interesting, but every single way interrupts the piece. And guys, this will happen, right? When we're designing and creating these moments, there's gonna be times where you kind of have the perfect vision in your head, but it won't work for the kind of artwork that you're doing. And that's totally fine. That's like a thing. That is a normal part of the process of design. We're kind of sitting on a rock. He's going to have little Bender legs. Bender from Futurama. Let's make this nice and easy. Let's not overdo it. But he is going to be kind of like... Bah! maybe freaking out a little bit. Let's give him a half circle for a head, like a half dome. He's got like an accordion mouth or something. And maybe he's got like a big hat on. Oh, I love the idea of Madeline, like almost like a mushroom hat. Oh, that's fun. That's fun. You know, and when you're designing these kind of things, don't, you know, there's no factual recipe. There's no given best method. There's no best way. It's just, it doesn't exist. You have to go with your gut. You have to just feel it out. You know, you have to allow the piece to come to you. Because often, and you'll hear sculptors talk about this a lot, when somebody is sculpting out of marble, or they're sculpting out of a material that they have to be reductive. And by reductive, I mean they've got a giant chunk of something that they're removing parts of. If you see somebody who sculpts with a chainsaw, sculpts wood sculptures, that is an amazing skill, guys. If you've never seen a sculptor carve, like a really good sculptor carve with a chainsaw out of wood, the things they can come up with, breathtaking. The things they can come up with while holding a 20-pound weight that is moving a chain blade. Like, it's amazing. It's amazing. It's brilliant. What they always talk about is they talk about the idea of being reductive. And what that is you have to allow the medium, so in their case the wood, you have to allow the medium to tell you what it plans on being. Because there's a lot of things that are happening inside of that block of wood that can't be controlled. Oh, maybe he's sitting, oh, okay. He looks like a mushroom and he's sitting on a big mushroom. Yes! And then we'll have a bunch of little mushrooms around here. This is what I'm talking about. This is the process of allowing the artwork to just start telling you the story. Okay, so we've got our robot, we've got our little girl. This is great. We haven't steampunked her up yet, and we haven't finished his design. We'll get there. We're just blocking everything in. But as a central focus of the story, I believe that they're already kind of holding this place really well. The accentuating characters, the teacups, all of that stuff, that's all going to be present. This teacup will be looking at, oh, maybe the teacup will have little leaf hands, and it'll be like reaching up towards the dragon to get, like, for her to have a drink. Little girl smiling. Okay. She's probably gonna have like a maybe I'll give her like one of those like aviator helmets or hats with like the goggles on it. That'd be kind of cool. And then she can have a big old puff of hair popping out below. Ooh, I love that. So she's got this really tight aviator business going on. Maybe she's got like a little like ruts or something. Her ears here, and then she's got this huge fluff of curly hair, think Brave, popping out the bottom. That lets us really kind of start establishing her like a little bit of personality. Even though she's young, she'll still have this crook on her back because we're all human, and we all have that pivot. We'll have her arm coming up here. Beautiful. That means her legs come from there. Great. And now, even though we're keeping her young, you know, let's say we keep her 14, 15. She's still going to have some female form. Now, we're not going gratuitous, right? We're not. The point of the drawing is not to explore this young woman's physicality. But keep in mind that even though we're drawing something to, not a simple degree, but we're drawing something to a degree that represents more of a illustrative, fun storybook style, there are still certain anchors that we as humans need to be able to see and understand to allow us to take in the picture in the way I want you to take it in. Which means a lean into a bit of realism, a lean into understanding exactly what, you know, this setting is displaying. And a way that you can look at it and say, oh, that's a young female, and they're having a tea party. Because we're just trying to communicate all these different facets of this story at once. Okay, I feel like we've established them. We've established their placeholder. We've established there's lots of great stuff going on here. Maybe there'll be some flower petals she's leaning on, which I really love the idea of that. Because again, flowers are very prominent in this scene. So even though we're in the forest, we're going to have lots of flowers, lots of flower beds, things like that. This is all just going to be, we're going to be on the top of this little grassy knoll with flowers everywhere. Okay, we're in a garden. Next, let's drop in the most prominent character in the piece, and that is going to be our dragon. I'm really happy with this. This came together so naturally and so easy, and that is the recipe for a successful piece. When you don't have to force the piece to work, you're in great shape. So let's go ahead and keep pushing on this. I'm ecstatic at this point, by the way. All right. Just looking at my reference real quick, give me one moment. Just need to kind of double check myself. So now that we're going to start laying in the dragon, I need to reassess my reference for my dragon. Now, again, we're doing a flower dragon, right? I'm just going to go, here it is, since there's only one viewer here. Again, hey, by the way, thanks for being here. I really appreciate it. The morning's a little slow. No, the house is empty, and I'm just enjoying a chill session, and I'm super happy you're here. So thanks for hanging out, and you're doing more for me than you could possibly realize. So thank you. So let's just look at some of the reference I pulled. Let me take you down this pathway that we went. You know, when I was looking at different reference pieces, I was looking more for the mood and tonality I was trying to nail, and this is the feel, right? We're clearly going to be more detailed than this. But if I can nail this setting and this moment of pleasurable interaction without going super heavy-handed, then this will be an unmitigated success. This is not the style I'm going for, but this is the feel I'm going for. And that's a very important thing to understand and establish is how does it feel, right? This setting, this feeling, I really want to evoke this kind of lightness and happiness. So this will not be a heavily dark penned piece, but more leaning into these larger shapes and allowing the shapes themselves to come to life. Alright, let's go to my dragon set stuff. So my dragon reference I pulled was not cool, scary dragons. It was not dragons that have all these insane things happening. It was how can I go ahead and start deriving some really pretty dragon aesthetic. How can I make this dragon feel long? How can I make it feel non-threatening? Because there should be no fear in this piece. That would be counterproductive. I like the way the neck works in this, and I like look at the aesthetic smoothness of the horns. Everything on this dragon, from the very tip of the nose all the way to the curve of the body and all of the horns, everything follows a pre-described curve that emits softness, right? Great example here. I looked up, what does it look like when a dragon is sleeping or sitting? Because I wanted to understand what the body needed to be doing, right? In this case, we're going to be able to skirt that a little bit because we're going to go ahead and we're going to take, and let's just put this on the paper here. We are going to have the dragon surround them, but not in a threatening way. So let's go ahead and let's lay in the top of the spine. And this is the tail, and this is essentially the top of the spine of the tail. Now, when I say that, what I mean is when you're talking about a dragon tail will look something like this, right? And this is where the spine is. The spine, just like our body, because our spine is against the top back of our skin. That's why you can see our spinal bone, our spinal cord. You can see our vertebrae. And then everything else underneath that is the tail meat, all the musculature and everything like that. So everything builds from this tail. So all your musculature is just like our spine. All your musculature is attached to that spine all the way down. And then down here, this is all the extended tendon and fat because those muscles essentially wrap around all of that and connect to both sides. So just keep that in mind that when we're drawing this dragon, we're gonna lean into drawing this spine first to really establish the hardest point of the tail, of the back of the dragon. And so here we go. We've got the dragon's spine right there. We're going to go ahead and have the tail and spine kick up something like this. It'll also create a nice artificial shape that kind of frames her in, which is really, really nice. I'm going to allow this part of the spine to curve back down because I'm trying to insinuate that this dragon is stupid long, right? This dragon is really a big dragon. So instead of going big with thick, like instead of taking the scale of dragon and just sliding it uniformly up, I'm taking it and I'm making sure the dragon scale comes, or its really largeness comes in this length. And I think that's something a little more akin to, you'd see, to like a sea monster, like the Nessies of the world, or like a Leviathan if you're a Final Fantasy fan. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go to Google and type in Leviathan. You'll instantly understand the body type I'm going for. And so we have our form. And again, keep in mind, our dragon is going to be made out of flowers. So that absolves us of quite a bit of spines and really aggressive stuff. Okay, so now we can see our spine, right? And you'll notice as the dragon turns, the spine always stays on top. And what this tells you is that this spine of the dragon, that's the thickness. So this is all dragon tail. That's all the meat of the dragon's tail. And that is the dragon right there. Now, I'm not going to worry about drawing the bottom of the dragon because I would like to have like all the extra stuff like flowers and grass and stuff sticking up and the dragon kind of settling behind that. So we don't got to worry too much about trying to do all those details. We're just framing right now. This is not about the details. This is about the journey. We're taking this. We're getting ourselves to that point. All right. So now let's go ahead and let's drop our head in. So again, we want the eyes looking at our guests, our tea guests. And what I would like to do is let's go back to our reference and let's start looking at some of the heads I was kind of digging on. I really love this, but I don't think this is enough, right? This is a super cool snow/star, like very lunar dragon. See the stars? The artist indicates that they are in fact on a ground plane. You can see kind of grass here. The artist gives you this stick of willows. That's a willow, like a willow. You go to the beach, you see them all the time. So they're indicating that they're on the ground level. This is kind of a hill, and then the stars and everything are behind them, and then we're seeing them at an elevated level because we're looking through some flowers and some trees. It's a beautiful piece. Gorgeous. One of my favorite ones I found last night when I was referencing one. The reason this is so gorgeous is because with the simplest of artwork, they've told you a story that these two are very close. They've told a story of connectivity. It's just beautiful. It's really satisfying to look at. So I want to, again, this is evoking the right feeling, but it's not right. But I do love the long snoot, the soft eye. The horns are almost just protrusions and extensions of the hair versus being horns, right? So think about that dragon and then think about this dragon. That's not the one I want to look at. What is this? This is a fantastic version of what I'm talking about. Long body. Again, not made out of flowers. This is obviously water. But this indicates, this intimates exactly what I'm trying to approach. No. Fun. I love I grabbed this because I love these clouds and I love this little guy. And I do believe my background is going to have some of this energy in it, a little more high energy in the background. This is super fun. Not what we're trying to design, but I thought that this was really clever because there's a couple things happening here. Look at all of the little details, all these little extras that none of that mattered to the focus. When you come here, you go boop, and you look right here. And that is all you need to know. She is riding her dragon friend. He's got a smile. She's got a crown. They're buddies. This is way too intense. This is wrong. But what's important about this is that it changes the structure. When you think of a dragon, you think of a dragon with a long snout and eyes maybe back here. Here, you have a dragon with a very snub nose, and the eye is really up close up front. And it's a very thick neck. But imagine if this thickness was the thickness along the entire dragon's body, then that becomes much more interesting. So this is definitely thinking in a new, interesting way, but it's not right. This is fun. Again, a soft dragon, a nice approach. I really like the way that this, communicates that it's not aggressively like trying to be. It's not going to eat you. I think this is very, very good. So those are kind of like. In fact, this is probably something I'll lean into. Is this eye shape? It's a much more of a cat eye shape, and a cat eye shape is a little more friendly than the eye shape of a reptile. Reptile eye shapes feel foreign, they feel alien for a good reason. They are cold-blooded animals, we are warm-blooded animals. Nature has told us that the separation between cold-blooded animals and warm-blooded animals is the biggest separation you're going to have when it comes to species, right? Have you ever noticed that we don't eat reptiles? Think about that. We eat every other animal in the world. In some cultures, we'll eat snakes. Some cultures will eat lizards. Some parts of the world, that will be something that people sustain themselves on, but it's never something that socially has become a regular intake for us. And it's because people are kind of naturally off-put to reptiles. They have the exact same meat, the same nutritional qualities, the same everything that mammals do. But for whatever reason, we receive them differently, if that makes sense. Alright, so I'm feeling this. I think what I really love about this, and this is something I'm going to pull in, I love the way that the musculature and the wrinkles in the skin here show. I'm going to really leverage this. I want to show the corded muscles of the neck. Even though this is more of a kid's piece, and it's still more of a lighter cartoony feel with a flower dragon, a dragon's a dragon. A dragon is a big-ass reptile that is just muscle and bone and sinew and wings. You don't often see a fat dragon, right? Dragons are, by their very nature, hunters. And if you look at a lion, look at pictures of a lion, look at a picture of any predator in the world, they are a ball of muscle. They're amazing. You don't think about it when you see them on National Geographic because you usually see them at rest, but go and watch a video of a lion or a lioness that's hunting, and when they tense, you see rippling muscles around their entire frame. It's amazing. They are beautiful. Nature is the best artist there is. Hands down. Alright, so let's go ahead and keep pushing here. So I know that I want to get this kind of muscular quality in. That's not a problem. We'll come back to this reference piece. We're still trying to find the right reference for the head. This is interesting. It's wrong, but it's interesting. Now this is getting somewhere where I wanted to go. I found this last night and I said, okay, here we go. Look at B. Now, if we look at B and we take away the sharp teeth, okay, so we've got a dragon with kind of a cool underbite, a little bit of the tufting coming up there. I love the fact that this jawline whips down and then comes back up. This is almost more akin to a snake, which really adds into the long body we've been talking about. This kind of undergirdle right here is really special, really something one of my favorites, because from this we can have flowers come down almost like a beard. So we could almost have the dragon have a whole garden on its underside, and then maybe on the top we have some more scales or we have some other kind of fauna. That's kind of interesting. So let's start there. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to lean into this design as a starting place. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a picture. Let's see here. Sorry, my wife just texted me. 1 second. I apologize about this. I try to stay away from the stuff on the stream. Okay, I'm going to take a picture of this reference. Here's a pro tip. If you ever find the right reference, and you're like, this is perfect, and then you're trying to redraw it, and it's like the wrong direction, it's the wrong angle, the wrong sides, grab your phone, take a picture, and then just rotate the picture in your phone. Like, rotate it to where it's the exact right direction you're trying to go. You have one of the most powerful tools that an artist could possibly have. You can take anything in the world that you can take a picture of, anything, and you can mess with it. You can adjust it. Although this is not letting me adjust to the direction, to the scale that oh, there we go. Although this is giving me some issues with the crop. Come on, crop tool. Don't be a jerk. Okay, other pro tip. If you're cropping, you're having issues getting it to actually crop in the way you need it to, you can take a picture of it while you're cropping it. Alright, that should be good. So let me show you what I did. I went and I made this. So I took the picture, I cropped it, I rotated it. I'm now going to go ahead and rotate it one more time. Because I just think I could get a little more. There we go. Now we're cooking with fire. Alright. So it was a little bit of gymnastics, right? But what we have here is we've got the proper angle. We've got the proper scale, and this is just reference, but it's reference that's not making me work hard. It's going to be looking from the right direction because it's coming straight down, and his eyes will be fixed on the kids, or on the young girl. So I'm just going to start laying in the general snoot. Let's put the eye in first. Nice. Okay. Now again, we are intentionally staying super loose, and the reason for that is because there's no reason to commit ourselves. There's no reason to force ourselves into a very specific path for this drawing. We don't need it to be anything more than what the drawing tells us this piece is going to be, and this will just happen naturally. This is the beauty of doing this kind of work. We allow the exploration to do just what exploration does, which is show us something we did not know that was there. You have to think about your art like that sometimes. You know, you, as much as we like to be the master of our craft, the master of our hand. Okay, I already broke my own rule, right? Hey! Oh, Chector, I'm sorry to hear that, dude. I hope you're having a nice day. I hope you get feeling better. Thank you so much for being here, man. Take care of yourself. Today we're working on a piece that was a little more focused around a children's storybook. So, buddy, I'll keep working on it. Pop in. Let me know what you think. I never saw that Facebook message come through, so please, as soon as you can send me a Facebook message, I'll go ahead and send you a link for the full resolution download of the Tom and I, okay? So just hit me up when you're feeling better. Buddy, go get some sleep. Get feeling better. I hope you have an amazing night of rest. And stay safe out there, by the way. All right. So we've laid in our initial kind of scale of Dragon Head. Now keep in mind, I'm planning on this thing becoming much more buoyant, much more flowerish. But we're just kind of getting the initial thrust of our project in. The reason I put the Dragon Head up here is because I want a little bit of clear space right here. I don't need them touching. I also don't need the dragon to feel crowded. This thing is massive. So it's okay that our piece is going to extend a little bit, right? We'll have the frame cut it off like right there. And that's totally okay. So I'm going to put a new artificial line up at the top. And that's going to be our, and the neck of the dragon past this point isn't really important, right? We're just trying to frame in this story and these details. We're not trying to make every part of the dragon present. It's not the important part. Okay, so we've got our dragon here. We've got our form. We'll worry about if we're going to do horns or anything like that. We'll worry about all that kind of stuff. But maybe we'll go ahead and have, maybe the dragon's tongue's like sticking out or something like that. Let's lay in that cat eye we were talking about. Yeah, that's feeling good. I'm liking this. Again, check in with yourself, right? Is it feeling good? Is it not feeling good? Is it hitting the tone you're trying to establish? Or is it fighting against you? Are you having to justify the decisions you're making, or are they coming naturally? Sorry, wife? Okay, so we've got our dragon laid in. We've got our main character laid in. She's holding the tea flower up. We have our robot here that's looking up at the dragon as well. Because again, eyes, 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 eyes. Okay? You have to think directionally. The story is going to come to life through where we're focusing the attention of our characters. Very important. Okay. I'm not going to touch the background yet because there's no point in putting a bunch of background elements back here if we haven't actually established the details of these characters yet. Then I'm just going to have to do a bunch of erasing. But we've now established our midground. Let's see, how do I want to do this? That was that, that was that. I can have the dragon. No. Is it really that vital to have part of the dragon popping in here? I don't think so. I don't think we need to interrupt this, but I do think we'll need something to kind of hold this side of the piece down. So maybe that's a tree. Or like the side of like a little rock outcrop or something. We'll have to do something over here to anchor this side of the page. And that's fine. We'll definitely figure that out. Let's go ahead and put some foreground in. We know we're predominantly leaning into flowers. So I'm just going to go ahead and put some flower shapes here. Flower shapes here. Flowers. We'll do some, there'll be like little flower bushes in here. We are in a garden, right? So let's consider that. I'm going to put a little like flower bushes just framing in the dragon's tail on this side so that we essentially the background becomes a little more of a like this. So maybe that's what we'll do. We'll create this kind of sense that everything kind of comes into like a cove around the centerpiece. I think that works really good. Okay. Next. what is it about the foreground that's going to draw us up here? Well, the only reason we're going to be able, so we start here, we go here, I then want you to come down here, right? What is it about this foreground setting that's going to draw us to this front area? Well, perhaps we can have some characters working on the flowers. Maybe there's like a little like bridge or like a rope bridge and they're like carrying pollen. That could be really cute. And if we make them small enough, then we make them dark, they will hold the foreground, but they won't interrupt the point of focus in the background. So I love the idea of having these little characters that are like literally like carrying pollen, like pollen kernels, between these rope bridges. That's kind of awesome. We'll have another one in here like working, like pulling one of the little kernels out. Maybe these kernels are kind of like the center of the flower, and so they're just gathering them. We can have like a foreman here shouting. He's got like a little flower hard hat on, which would be really cute. Yeah, maybe these characters have like flowers on their heads. So they're like nymphs. Oh, that could be cool. So they're like little like nymphs or like fairies. So we have this whole scene happening up here that is separate and unattached to the scene back there. And that's what we call foreground and background, right? Foreground is not always about just having something up front. Foreground is often the telling of a secondary story that may be as or more pivotal. Now the question is if I want my primary story to be occurring up here, I need to decide, is the primary thrust of the story the left side, the right side, or in the middle, right? We don't have to decide that yet, but I'm going to have to come to that conclusion at some point. So just be ready, because we're gonna delve into that. All right, guys, I think we're at a point where we should take a break. We've been going for an hour and 20 minutes. I'm going to refresh my coffee. I'm going to get a little bit of kimchi. I'm going to take 5 minutes. I'm going to post this to Instagram and kind of invite some people to come and join on this piece. And yeah, if you can give me 5 minutes, I'll be right back. Go stretch your legs, get some water, bathroom break, do whatever you got to do. Or if you're listening to me while you're working, keep on working, and I hope you're having a great day. I'll be right back. Hi, welcome back. Sorry about the break. Thanks for giving me a moment. For those who are just joining me, my name is Random Hamilton. I am a concept artist, designer, stay-at-home dad, and streamer. And today we are working on a piece that was asked and requested from the stream. You can see the details of that piece right here. Today we are making a dragon made out of flowers with steampunk characters, a girl and a robot, in a garden. The flowers are a prominent part of the piece, and this is a more positive piece. We have taken that brief and we've turned it into a tea party. So we have a tea party setting. It's a little more fun and fantasy. We have these different parts of the flower kingdom, little flutes of flower and teacup flowers serving the tea. And we have just done our initial lay-in earlier of the day by laying in the different elements loosely. This is very much an early work in progress. We have not committed any true design. And we are just trying to give ourselves as much breathing room as possible by solving as many early challenges before we have to start really committing through our art. And the thing to understand about that is that it's not just about making sure that everything you draw is perfect. It's impossible. That's just not how it works. What we're trying to do is we're trying to give ourselves as much room to comfortably play and provide foundation, but not feel that we are hedged in or stuck. Okay. Man, you would be amazed how many people hit you up on Instagram to ask you to promote on their webpage, and then they try to say, well, we'll go and we'll post your post for $20. It's so stupid. I'm just so already over that. I have had to block like 6 or 7 channels that just spam me. It's ridiculous. Okay. We've got our robot. We've got our girl. We've got our flower dragon. Let's let's figure out where we want to start. I think I'm going to go with red pen today. I've got a couple reasons for that. Number one, I think in this setting, the red being a warm base will be a little more of a welcoming piece. And I mean that, and not so much as that like the blue pencil isn't welcoming, but the blue tends to be a little colder, and it's really, really good when I want something to have almost like a foundation of, what's a good example? Where do I like to use blue? I like to use blue when I'm going to be working on a lot of like clean or mechanical pieces, or I'm really trying to derive a good deal of like specific emotion. And that really is where it thrives. But the red is really good for this exact kind of subject matter. We're working on a more positive piece, right? We have to think about that. We're thinking this is a positive story of a little girl and a robot having tea with a dragon. I know, it's out there, but it really does lend itself to something that's a little sweeter in general in tone. And all I'm doing is I'm trying to extricate a little extra red lead, because I'm going to need all the red lead I can get. That was not very much red lead. That was not worth the time investment. Whatever. Let's make sure I get blue. Oh, we had more red lead in there. Ah! Maybe I'm not crazy. So let's just get as much of that out as we can. I know this is not the most exhilarating part of the stream, but I assure you, this is part of being an artist. You just kind of got to manage the resources that you have available. Ah, now that is exactly what I wanted. Okay, let's get the blue out of this guy so I can use it next time. Always make sure you have a little bit of lead loaded in your mechanical pencils, because the worst thing you can do is grab a mechanical pencil thinking you're ready to draw with it, and you score your page. The thing I worry about more when I'm doing art is damaging the paper than I am about making marks. Making marks can be solved, but if I damage the paper, I can't go back from that. It's just kind of as simple as that. All right. So we have got our red lead now. That's good. We have started to develop our piece here. Aw. Thanks, buddy. Okay. Let's go ahead and start laying in some details with the red pencil. Now, you're going to see something right away. This red pencil is going to pop right off the page. And the reason for that is because the red complementing to the green underneath it will neutralize. And what that's going to do is that's going to serve the same purpose as if we were using graphite. It's going to take it to a toned gray, kind of a warm gray. Come on. Start working with me, please. Okay, there we go. All right. So some decisions need to be made about this dragon's head. I'm going to start with the dragon. I want to encourage some softness. I don't want it to be silly, but I do want it to be non-threatening. So I'm going to start up here at the eye. I'm going to look at those cat eyes that we were looking at reference earlier. Because to me, that's going to be a real selling point of this piece, is nailing that eye. So let's go ahead. The eye is going to be non-threatening. It's going to be a strong eye, but it's going to be soft. There we go. You know, it can't be understated the importance and the power of eyes in a piece of art, because eyes really do tell their own very important story. Now, because we are going to go more for a cat eye, it's going to be an eye with like a slit. So we need to make sure that we really establish enough details of the eyeball itself so that you can understand that the eye is still looking down. Because a cat's eye has this kind of like just like dash slit down the center. And so we need to intimate that the ball of the eye is pivoted towards the girl. So all we're doing is we're creating little moments where we're driving the attention downward. Because again, that's our focus here. Okay, so we've got our eye in. I think the eye looks really sweet. I'm not worried. We're going to come back to all of this. So don't worry like this is like, oh, we're done with it. We're not done with this. We're like at layer 1 of like 5, right? We're gonna level up the material, the medium that we're using. We're using pencil. We're going to level it up to pencil and pen. But we're just slowly laying in the most important details to bring this piece to life. Now I'm going to go ahead and look back at my reference, and I'm just going to start pulling in some of these details, right? We know that the dragon's going to have these kind of more prominent wrinkles around the eyes. This kind of indicates, again, we're working with a scaly creature that has different architecture around the eye than mammals. And you have to remember that. It's very easy. It's very easy. I mean, everybody makes this mistake. I've made this mistake on so many occasions I can't even tell you. Where you start creating a creature and you start drawing out the details of the way the architecture around the body part works, and then you start essentially recreating them as a mammal. And that's a problem, because obviously mammals and cold-blooded animals are very different species. Where our heads, our eyes, our bodies are formed differently because we have different functionality inherent in the way that we work. Okay, I'm going to get rid of this small lead. This is a pain in my butt. This is a false lead. It's hard to work with that kind of stuff because the lead itself rotates. And if the lead's rotating, then when you put pressure on it, you lose the pressure as it rotates around. Come on, red ink or pencil. Mechanical pencil life, guys. You know how it is. This is a 0.5, right? Yeah, that's 0.5. That's all 0.5. It should be coming out. Oh my god. What's going on with this thing? 1 second. Sorry, y'all. Again, part of being an artist. Sometimes you got to manage your tools. And sometimes your tools do not want to work in the way that you have both agreed on that is how you're going to work. I know you probably didn't come here to watch me take a pencil apart, but can't draw if our pencil's not working. Alright, so we are having some kind of stoppage. Okay, let's put those in. Let's put this guy in. I really want to make this work. I really want to use the red pencil today. I feel like the red pencil is the right move for this piece. I want the piece to feel warm. I want the piece to feel inviting. And the red is just going to naturally do that without me having to extend a bunch of effort. It's just kind of the beauty of it. Which also means that I've got to force this tool to work. The reason I'm starting at the head the way I am is because I really feel it's important if I'm... Oh no, it fits. Okay, good. If you're ever stuck on a mechanical pencil and you can't get it to function the right way, try running the lead back through it, and because it's usually usually what happens is the lead will get kind of messed up inside the chamber and kind of fracture, and so this is the best means to kind of dislodge that. Alright, let me see where my reference was that I was drawing from. Here we go, okay. So this is more of a nice and smooth. And I'm just leaning back and looking back into my bit of reference. That's all I'm doing. You'll notice that I'll kind of give a glance over just to understand the way that they've hardened certain forms. But again, we're not recreating that dragon. We're simply drawing inspiration from the forms that it provided. We've already pretty drastically adjusted our approach. So we don't have big old teeth going, but I would like to have some like hardened cartilage that does kind of make up the front of that mouth. Because functionally, I do want the design to adhere to the source reference, because I feel like the source reference really was a huge inspiration. And what it was doing was it provided a realistic path to get to a much different dragon, which is what we've embraced. We've embraced a different approach to this dragon. Now I'm going to go ahead and specifically not do too much on this front arc, because I do want to make sure that I allow some space for flowers, almost like a flower goatee. So I kind of want to create just this sense that there's a jumble here of fauna and flora. But I don't also want to cover the face in flowers. I don't need the dragon to be made out of flowers, but I want the flowers to be coming from the dragon, if that makes sense. So we have our nose slit here. Some of our detailing and shapes. One thing I like to do is I like to, especially when it comes to doing like reptilian features, is to essentially insinuate that there is roughness or bumpiness on the texture. And what you can do is, when you're working with lines, just do a little bit like a half arc and then leave it empty and floating. And what that does is it insinuates that that part of the body has like a movement and undulation over those parts of the scales. Continuing on. Let's see, just looking at reference one more time, kind of getting a sense for what I want to pull from this guy, so give me just one moment. Just making sure we don't need to rush this. You know, nothing's gained by forcing ourselves through the piece, if that makes sense. It's about allowing the piece to kind of come to life as you work on it, not trying to work on it so hard that you push it across a certain threshold or a certain line. That's not where we're at, and that's not really what we're trying to establish. Now, one thing you may notice is it may seem like this dragon's coming off as a little more sincere or a little more serious, and that's okay. We're going to soften it as we add the details in. We'll bring more of the character in, but we're just trying to give ourselves as many areas of defined form as possible, and then we'll choose which of that we then embrace and carry on into the rest of our piece. There's no impetus for us to make this dragon any more detailed or serious than it needs to be. All we're trying to do is we're trying to kind of lay in and continue doing what we were doing before, developing our foundation. It may seem like I'm putting a lot of details in, but I assure you, all I'm doing is I'm just kind of establishing where breaks in the form occur. Keep that in mind too. When you're working on a piece, you can go a long, long time before you have to really settle, right? Before that shape has to be that shape. That form has to be that form. That's just not where we're at. That's not what we're looking to do. What we're more interested in doing is we're more interested in trying to give ourselves essentially as many guide rails so that when we start putting pen down, we start really putting graphite down, we already kind of know what it's going to look like. At this point, we're just kind of navigating and setting ourselves up for our future success, right? It's just planning. We're just planning. There we go. One thing you've noticed I have not put on here is I haven't put on any horns, right? And that's not to say we won't, but I'm wondering if horns will be less effective versus if I just go with something that's more like a mane. That could be really cool. You know, we know that we've already talked about maybe the bottom of the dragon being predominantly made out of flowers, so it's almost like a garden on its underside. But on the top, we can certainly do some kind of scales, or we can do more flowers. You know, we have some options. I think I do like the idea of there being some kind of communication of plating. You know, we're not going for a heavily armored dragon. I'm not trying to insinuate that this thing is going to be super serious. Again, it's about context. So let's say I want to have a really strong, so let's say that the mouth came out like this. You know, I'm going to reaffirm, I'm going to give a thicker line around the mouth so that we don't lose it. We need it to immediately show importance, right? So we've thickened that line around the mouth. And I'm going to allow that to carry up where it's supposed to, right? Almost back here. So you're like, oh, okay, so the mouth doesn't stop by the eye. The mouth goes all the way back here. And then again, that changes entirely how this thing talks, right? It changes how this thing emotes. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to harden this structure right here and just really indicate that this is kind of like where the mouth kind of stops, right? Think of a snake. Snake's mouths open really wide because snakes consume their food by swallowing it and then digesting it whole, right? So what we're going to do is we're just going to insinuate that that is essentially the same kind of leading structure. If you are just joining us, welcome to the stream. My name is Raymond Hamilton. I am an illustrator, an artist, a creative, a stay-at-home dad, and a streamer. Today we were working on a piece that was derived from the actual stream where I had people ask and share some ideas. We were working on a flower dragon and a tea party and all of that. So welcome to the stream. Hope you enjoy your time. Feel free to comment, throw some shouts in. Your participation is everything. And it really does help me keep pushing on these ideas. So having you here is a super huge part of my day, and it's making it all the better. So thanks for being here. All right, so we've really kind of done a lot of work here to kind of lay in these details, and I think we're at the point now where we can start just less worrying about the way this dragon's coming together. We've kind of answered that. If somebody was to come over here and glance, they would see, oh, there's a dragon. Now, granted, we have not put the flowers in. We'll work on that. But all I'm trying to do is I'm trying to now identify the architecture on the form. Lead breaks. That's why we loaded up lead. You'll break a lot of lead doing drawing with a mechanical pencil. It's just kind of part of the gig. All right. I feel like we have really done some good work up there. We should decide if there is going to be any kind of horns. Traditionally, horns will kind of jet off the skull or will come out. Horns are a big part of a dragon story. Horns are a big part of the way we always think of dragons because it's one more way to bring the threat of the power of a dragon into focus. When a dragon has horns, it means it's probably going to ram you with those horns, which means that the dragon's intending on ramming you and then eating you, which means those horns are super dangerous. Or if the horns in this case are facing away, like so, those are defensive, right? Another dragon goes to attack that dragon, they get horns in the mouth. Think about the way these different horns work. When you look at Dragon Reference, think about the way that the dragon's features protrude off the body. What's the function of that protrusion? In this case, there's no horns at all. We don't actually have to have horns, but it would behoove us to think about why this flower dragon, how is it essentially staying in control of its environment? How is it being the big, badass dragon that it is? I think we could have some subtle hornature up on the back. Just something really small, something really light. Nothing on the head. I want to keep the head unobstructed. But let's go ahead and just add in just a little bit of, not horns per se, but architecture. We're going to go ahead and just increase the architecture on the back of the dragon. And the architecture will carry over. We don't need to make these things dissimilar. They don't, when you think about your teeth, right? Yeah, they are different shapes, but teeth next to teeth next to teeth, there's a lot of similarities for their function, right? So think about these in the way we think about our teeth. Let's just make sure these are more like a consistent tooth shape going down the back. Okay, so we've established our dragon form. Let's go ahead and put a little bit of a top form for the eye. Maybe we'll have some little horn features around that. Let's make sure to establish these lines run all the way down the snoot, because again we are working with a snoot on a dragon. And all these details and all these nooks and crannies, these will come to life when we start applying pen and graphite. We're gonna get there. It's just kind of part of the process. Oh, I should move this. Apologies. You don't need to have that on the screen. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, let's go ahead and just do something with these little flowers here. I'm going to go ahead and just make this like a little space where there's lots of... We will come in and detail these more. We're just kind of laying in and establishing like that there are some less threatening parts of this. Yeah, that works. That's fun. Okay. So the dragon is very clearly looking right at her. Okay? Kind of ignoring the robot. We're fine with that. We don't need the robot involved in this. We've got the top of the dragon going off the page, which is totally fine. We've established that there is a scale structure, which is fine. We haven't really figured out these hangy balls yet, and that's okay. I'll do something with those. I like the idea of those, though. I think they kind of create like almost like a nightlight kind of thing. I was also thinking what would be really cool is if we had some hangy balls there, and then you saw like pine cones inside, and then on the ground there were a few glowing pine cones. So there's almost like the dragon is creating a light source, which could be really exciting in the picture. All right, let's see here. Just looking at my reference real quick. Give me just one moment. Just verifying that I'm in the right space that I want to be in. All right. So now we're going to go ahead. I'm going to leave this, let this trail off and be loose for the time being. Let's come down into the girl and let's go to our robot. Let's keep our attention on our focus area right now. We will get to the other stuff. So our girl, let's start with her head. Now again, we have to think about the fact that she is from a steampunk world. So there will be some things we need to... I don't necessarily think that the smile I have on her face is going to quite work in the way that I want it to. So I need to think about what the emotion is that she's going to have in her face. I'm going to look up a little bit of reference. I'm not going to worry about putting this on the screen because I don't want to obstruct the page any more than I already have. But I do think it's important for us to identify what it is that we're trying to say here. I like the idea of her having kind of like a rosy cheek. She is younger. So that makes it non-threatening.
her expression. Maybe the fact that her eyes open like that is a problem. Maybe we just go for pure joy. Oh, I love that. Okay. So we're going for a very happy moment. She is so not worried about this dragon. She's got her eyebrow, she's got her smile, she's like got like a big old toothy grin. Oh, that's nice. Okay, that's a much better emotion. So there's zero threat in the scene, right? In this setting, there's no fear that this dragon has ever harmed them. It is just a very positive space. I love that. All right. Let's really make sure that we nail that bridge to the nose. Now again, she is small, but in this piece she's still, fairly large. She's prominent enough where we can really define some fun details. We know that her hair is going to come back in this big old ponytail, and I think I'm going to make the thing that she has her hair tied into like some kind of like mechanical piece, because she is, again, steampunk world. We're going to go ahead and we're going to give her hair its due attention. Now, what you'll see me do in this kind of situation is the hair details are not the most important part of her hair. It's more the wildness of the hair. It's the fact that it is just a huge part of her general silhouette. So I'm not trying to shoot for perfection. I'm trying to shoot for a really clear storytelling, which to me seems like this is a good way to get that across. So she's got a big smile. She's got happy eyes. She's reaching the teacup up. We got the ear in. We'll put like a little bit of a jaw there just to kind of close that side off. We got her hat with her goggles. And you'll notice what I've done is I've really tried to just adhere to the initial placement of the forms that we did earlier. It's very easy to feel that you are obligated to follow a certain path of creating this art. And there's just no reason to, right? We were being suggestive earlier, and we're continuing on that path, and it's really not to make this the perfect piece of art. It's really not to make this anything more than it has to be. And all we're trying to do is we're trying to convey this story, this really positive, fun story. That's really not a hard thing to accomplish. You just have to give yourself the room to play, right? Don't force yourself into a certain path. So we've established her hair. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to insinuate just a little bit of texture. All right. Let's go ahead and make sure we have some form around these goggles. We made the goggle tops. Let's make the goggle bases. Because these are goggles she would pull down over her eyes. Maybe these have like a bit like a nose ridge, a little bit of shape around the sides. and then the headband, the band itself would attach right there. When you're making and developing the accoutrements on a character, there's no reason to worry about how they're supposed to work, because you are the definer of that, right? You're not trying to convince somebody that this is a real thing. You're just trying to convey that there's enough here that you can build something that feels realistic off of it. If you can think about your art like that as primarily you're just trying to communicate story in a way that just makes sense, I think that will be the most successful route for you to take. Being light again, don't commit, don't feel that you have to execute in a very specific way. Alright, so let's keep pushing. She is going to have maybe overalls. That could be fun. And then she'll have like a t-shirt. And then maybe she'll have like elbow pads. We're going to have to do some work to make her convey steampunk, right? So maybe this is where we look back to our reference. What is it about her that I want to do steampunk? Steampunk cartoon character. Get really literal, by the way, guys. When you're finding reference, think about the character in as literal a way as you can. That will really lend itself to you finding success. Okay, so here's something we can do. Some things that are common with steampunk. Striped pants, right? Think of steampunk as almost like an extension of being a pirate. Striped pants, maybe ruffles. So we are doing a little girl here. So like thin, like form-fitting isn't really what we're striking out for, right? But what we can do is we can do some stripy, like maybe she has like some overalls. And then in the overalls, at the top of the overalls, there's like some ruffles. This is a very kind of steampunk aesthetic. And then for her shirt, yeah, she'll have a t-shirt on. But maybe there's like some elbow pads, which we kind of already indicated there. But I wasn't quite sure how we were gonna utilize them. But I think this actually works really well. For her overalls, let's go ahead and give her striped overalls. And then we'll have the overalls actually end short, so they're almost like capris. And then all we're going to do is we're also going to go ahead and give her a belt, and it'll have like a wrench on it, because she did build her robot friend. So it would make sense if she's that handy that she's going to keep tools on her person. And again, guys, you'll notice that I'm just kind of designing. I'm just kind of like talking her out as we go. This isn't something we kind of pre-planned, but this is how these characters come to life. Is you just give them room to breathe and evolve in front of you. That goes a long way. It really does mean that you can slowly but consistently and effortlessly add more and more breadth to the characters on the page. And you don't have to solve it all beforehand. It's just, that's not necessary. Let's give her like a big old chunky wrench. Love that. She has a big old chunky wrench that hangs down. Right there. That's fun. I know this looks like a bunch of lines. That's okay. This will all disappear as we start adding in more of our depth and we add more graphite. But this is strictly just to help us define. That's great. Love that. Let's give her like a little pouch. Because she is steampunk. And she is, you know, let's see, if she's in this flower world with her robot, then she's not at home safe with her family, right? She's clearly from a different world than the flower dragon, because you're not going to have a flower dragon essentially be in the same place as like steampunk. They're just very different environments. But there's nothing to say they can't exist in the same world. It's just different parts of the world, right? So maybe she went on a journey with her dragon friend. Lots of potentials for what that could be. Instead of making this a long sleeve shirt, I'm going to make this a short sleeve shirt, and then that way those elbow pads really pop off. This is a image that's a little more kid friendly, and I like to, especially because I have a son, I'm trying to start thinking about integrating ideas that are safer and that are more appropriate for children instead of the darker tone pieces that I usually create. So we're just putting our hand here. And then she is offering the flower filled with tea to the dragon. Yeah. Shit. Yeah, that's great. So the dragon now has this direct eye contact with her. She doesn't need to be looking at the dragon for you to understand that there's a very direct connection between the two of them. And I can't stress enough how important it is to not worry, which is a weird thing to say, but you can't worry about if it's working or if it's not working. Because if you worry about that too much, you're just going to stop yourself from progressing. And all we've been doing so far is progressing, which is great. So now we're going to go ahead. We've got the interaction there in place, and that's working great. Let's go ahead and figure out the rest of her back leg here, leg back here. That's her other leg and the other cuff. Cool. And then we'll just kind of insinuate that the other arm is popping up here as well in the backdrop. Again, I'm going to lean into the green pencil. There's no reason for us to break the method we've been doing. If you start adding too many mediums in until you have an intent behind that medium addition, it just gets a little bit clumsy. So just keep that in mind. Don't put too much in. It's not worth it. All right. Our audio stopped. Let's go ahead and get some audio going again here. Can't have no music. Let's see. We've been doing chill for a while. Let's go with happy. Happy's pretty good. Hey, that's nice. I'm feeling that. Okay. So, what do we want her? Do we want her to be wearing boots, like little work boots, or like jellies? Let's go with giving her little workman boots. I like that idea. So let's make her soles. Make the top of her foot. Now I'm not worried about making this super realistic, right? Let's remind ourselves of that. This is not about being realistic. We're not trying to make the perfect shoe. We're not trying to make the perfect anything. We're just insinuating what all these details are, because there's a lot of details that are still going to be popping up here that are more important, right? All the flowers, all the mushrooms, all that stuff. So her feet kind of going off like this is fine, right? We just don't need that perfection, and that's cool. We've got her in. She's anchored. There's enough detail that we can kind of noodle that out later, okay? So now, let's do our robot friend.
You'll notice that I stayed away from the teacup. I want to make sure that there's consistency between the flower teacups all around, so I'm going to leave those guys for their own pass. Our robot is definitely low budge, and that's the intent, right? She made the robot, or she repaired him, so our robot is just going to be not very high tech. This does the same thing that we did with the dragons. Robots can come off as very intimidating. Again, you have to think about the fact of robots in relation to humans, right? We currently think of robots in a form of automation, but fantasy and sci-fi have always painted robots as more of a eventual thing that we're going to have to overcome, right? When you think about artificial intelligence, when you think about any kind of robotics that gets a mind of its own, or humans use it in an irresponsible way and then it essentially kind of takes on a life of its own from that. Those are very common themes in the world of sci-fi, and the reason is because they're so apart from humans on a fundamental level that we can't ascribe our personal moral or social obligations to them, and that's what makes them scary, is that there's no way to assure that they adhere to what we expect is normal positive interaction. You have to hope. And so that has always kind of made robots something that very easily can go from quirky or funny to intimidating. Excuse me. And so I'm just laying in the very fundamental elements of our robot. Our super not threatening robot. Just give him a little triangle nose, that's fun. His neck is going to be more like a series of cylinders that are just connected, so think of like a spine, and it's just kind of disappear up into the head. And make his chest more round. It's almost like he's reaching up to give the giant dragon a hug, which I really enjoy that concept. That a robot that should not have any emotion is reaching up to hug the dragon. Because a robot is actually not going to be afraid of a dragon, right? Like, think about that. If you are talking about something that doesn't have an emotion, a natural emotion that humans can connect to, well, it also doesn't know fear. It can assess, a robot can assess a threat, or it can assess an idea, but it's not afraid that something's going to come down and eat it. Especially because it doesn't consider itself a food source. You know, have you ever thought about the fact that we naturally have a fear of being eaten because nature has told us that something bigger than us can eat us, right? We offer sustenance and nutrients in a way that something else can survive by eating us. So we have this natural inherent fear of being consumed. Which is also why, as a race, the fact that we have been able to domesticate and create a cycle of consumption of animals in a safe way is why we've been able to sustain and grow as a culture, as a people. Let's see, we're going to put our little elbow dots. Don't worry too much about trying to make your robots function in a way that makes sense. Does that make sense? There's no reason for it. Let's go ahead. He's gonna have like little grabby claws. Grabby claws. Now he's not trying to drink tea because robots don't drink tea. But they're still serving him up because they don't know that a robot doesn't want tea. So this is also a great story beat for you to establish that the robot is an unfamiliar actor in this space, and even though we know that he won't drink tea, they won't know that. And that adds an element of realism and story to it. It's really fun. Okay, that hand's a lot longer than the other hand, so let's adjust that. That's better. He's got his little grabby claws. And there you'll notice I have the hands extending beyond the width of the head. So that's a really important thing. Always consider the fact
that these, you have to at least have some consistency of measurement. And if we have this big wide brim hat, well, he's a robot. His arm's made of metal. It's not like he can just push the hat out of the way. It's metal. So the robot's arc of grabbing and reach is going to match that kind of open arc. Okay. We're going to go ahead and put a little pressure gauge over his heart. I think that's a fun way to establish that he is synthetic. Little notches, little ways that we can break out the form a little bit. Just things to intimate the fact that he is, in fact, entirely a robot. Go and put like a little midriff here, and that will just have kind of like mechanical lines. And then his lower half is the same as the upper half, but we have the circles now facing down. But essentially, he is essentially he is midriff of, like that. Now a robot doesn't have a butt, so when a robot sits down with its metal body, it doesn't have to worry about getting into a comfortable situation, comfortable space. So let's go ahead and just make sure that he feels like he is grounded. So far, I'm feeling him. He's coming along nicely. We're not having to really think too hard. We're just adding. I'm going to take the opportunity to do something with cogs here, because this is a steampunk world. Just because he's a robot doesn't mean we don't have to. We can totally ignore the aesthetic of steampunk, which means little cog aesthetics and details, little anchors that kind of insinuate that will really go a long way. All right, you guys got a bit of a headache. I'm going to take just a couple minutes to grab a drink of water and get some Tylenol, and I'll be right back. 1 moment, please. Alright, I'm back. Sorry about that. Just a little bit of a headache brewing, and sometimes it happens. One of those things. Get a little Tylenol, drink some water, works great. Okay, let's continue. So this is a chance for us to decide what the robot's sitting on. I like the idea of the robot sitting on like a mushroom that is naturally expanding underneath him. I think that offers a really fun way of driving home that we're in kind of this lush, verdant garden. The robot's legs are very, very simple, kind of like benders from Futurama. So they're just like extendable, retractable pipes. Much like the arms, we will make sure there is a kind of a little knee joint. But it doesn't necessarily have to be the same kind of joint. So we're finding consistency in the way that the structure forms. But we can, again, this is steampunk, which means it's all a little ragtag. So he's not like off the model line. He is his own creation. So, all right. Give me just 1 second. Sorry about that. Wife loves to call me while I'm on the stream, which is totally fair, totally happens, but sometimes. All right, let's see here. We are getting this squared away. What are we going to do with this? So we put in a few more mushrooms here. There's some grass breaking. What's the trick whenever you're doing mushrooms and stuff? You don't need to draw the bottom of the mushroom. Just make sure to draw the bottom of the thing that the mushroom is engaging with. Maybe we'll do some of that. Okay, that's good. Let's go ahead and start developing our stump. Now, I'm not worried too much about this stumping like perfectly in perspective. If somebody was really nitpicking, it wouldn't make sense that the stump is kind of like tilting down towards us, but there's no point making the stump flat, because if we make the stump flat, then we can't really see the whole scene on top. So it's just a stump that happened to be cut from this angle. We'll just live with it and accept it for what it is. Now, stumps are interesting because if you think about the way roots work, roots are a series of rings. Roots reflect what's happening on the inside of a tree, very honestly. And if you cut a tree open, you see the tree has rings. Roots are simply an extension of that story, of that movement. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to make sure to reflect that in the base, in the rings themselves. All right. So we've got our root in, we've got our stump in, we've got our robot character, we've got our dragon. We've really covered a lot of ground here. I'm actually very impressed with how much we've gotten done. There's a few more things I'd like to do, like I'd like to have the circle come out more behind the robot, so that it's more of like a insinuated dome. That will let us also put shadow on his face. There we go. That's better. Okay. Yeah, that's feeling pretty good. Yeah, I'm liking that. So we've got a really positive story happening in the center, right? We have accomplished making this feel safe. I'm not quite going to go and work on the little flower things yet because I haven't designed what most of the vegetation in the scene is supposed to look like. We don't know if it's going to be roses or more like a variety of flowers, or if I'm going to do abstract flowers, which certainly could happen. We have some things to answer there. But I'm not quite ready to delve into that yet. I think maybe I need to take a break and just kind of chill out, maybe play a video game for a little while, refresh my stock of ideas, give my hand a break, and just let this piece breathe. And when I come back to it for the afternoon session, we'll continue on. But I'm really happy with where we're at. I think we've cracked something really special. It's really fun. So we'll just keep on this path. I don't think that we have to worry too much about trying to force it to go anywhere. I think it's happening very naturally, which is really wonderful. So I think I'll go ahead and call that now for good. Take a break. I hope you have a nice rest of your current afternoon. I'll come back later after I've had lunch with my wife and hung out with my son for a little while. So I should be back today around 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock is the afternoon stream. I'll be on from 4 to 7 today. So please pop back in a little later on. Thank you so much for being here right now. You guys have just being present is the world to me. So thank you. I can't wait to jump into this and really start delving into the next level up. When we get a few more areas defined with the red pencil, we'll come up here to the foreground. We'll figure the foreground out. And then we'll go ahead and we'll start bringing in some graphite and starting to provide depth and some real detail in tone. So, all right, y'all. Thank you very much. I hope you have a lovely afternoon, and I will talk to you when I talk to you. Peace.